Hi, Jarvis. It's a pleasure to be chatting with you. Thank you for agreeing to be interviewed for our series and celebration of Heritage Month. And this month is special because we get to celebrate Asian American and Pacific Islander um, history. And so, to get started, can you please tell me about you and how you identify?
Of course, it'd be my pleasure. I identify as ethnically Chinese. My grandparents were actually born in China, but they fled communism into Vietnam, which is where my parents were born. So my parents were actually born in Vietnam, and they were part of this kind of the slang term is Wakyu, which means ethnic Chinese growing up in Vietnam. But in terms of my family background, I am ethnically Chinese and I speak both Cantonese and Mandarin.
And there's no denying that identity impacts one's work and one's professional life. How has your identity impacted your career?
There's always been this very strong drive in my family because my parents, as I alluded to earlier, my grandparents fled communism. My parents left Vietnam to also fleeing communism, but also to find a new life. And they spent about 6 months at a refugee camp in Malaysia before they came to the United States. So there's always been this incredible notion of responsibility in my family that we have worked so hard to have the life, to have the opportunities that me and other members of my generation as first generation Asian Americans have in my family. And it is incredibly important to continue that drive to both one, find the successes through the opportunities that we have, but also to protect the family in the future as well. So it's incredibly important to become as educated and as skilled. And another component is to be as good of a person as possible because it's not just my name that I carry, but it's also my family name.
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate to that, carrying the family name with dignity and respect.
Absolutely.
Yes.
My mother would always say that people will not always remember the things that you say or the things that you do, but they will always remember how you make them feel and to always carry yourself in such a way, whether in your professional life, your social or personal life.
Yes. What importance does the term AAPI have for you?
I think for me, the importance of the term is a lot like any other term that we follow in terms of our heritage and our history, because we there is so much history and cultural significance for all of our backgrounds and our family history. It's important to celebrate the culture and the heritage that we have as Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, and to continue that into future, not only future generations, but also to promote this among other people in various communities that we're in. So for me, my Asian American identity is incredibly important when I present myself to my students or when I present myself to other first generation individuals, because it's that pride and also that welcoming energy that basically motivates people to want to learn more about not just my background, but also to learn about their background as well.
That is very true. And a couple of people that I have spoken to have talked about, like, how this carries significance for them in sharing their backgrounds, learning about it, and also inviting other people to learning about it. So, in terms of it having a month of celebration, what does it feel like, and what does it signify to you that we have 1 month out of the year to celebrate it?
I think having Now, obviously, we should be celebrating all backgrounds and cultures all across the year, but to have a month that is designated, what that allows us to do is to focus in on those cultures, on those histories, and to celebrate it all as a community. So, just as we have Black History Month, we also have Asian American Pacific Islander Month because we want to promote and to look back and to celebrate these identities that we share, either share directly by being a member of that community or the identities that we share because it matters to us to promote those that identity and that history and that culture. And by doing so, we invite others to do the same as well.
For sure. And that leads me to my next question of how has your racial and cultural identity encouraged and empowered you to continue in your line of work?
I think for me, having my Asian American background and having my first generation background, it really drives me to celebrate others that are also coming from that background, but also coming from different backgrounds as well. So we have close friends that come from that have different identities and different backgrounds, and it's incredibly important to celebrate those and to learn as much as we can from each other. In my office alone, we have so many different identities, and I just can't help but appreciate each and every single one of them
Mm.
for not just the individuals that they are, but also for they're kind of a culmination of all that their families have been through in terms of their attitudes and their preferences and the food, especially the food. So
Yes.
whenever when I take my students somewhere for, let's say, a conference or something, we always need to check out what are the local flavors and also what are kind of like these these flavors that have been changed in a way. So I recently I brought 11 of my students to a conference in Seattle to present their research. So we went to Seattle and we asked the locals, and apparently there's like a very strong Vietnamese and Indian diaspora there. So we had to, of course, see what West Coast Vietnamese and West Coast Indian, especially Northeast, in Seattle, what their food was like. And it was it was different from what we're used to, but still delicious either way.
Awesome. And can you describe what your biggest success is to date in terms of your career?
A few years ago, I was nominated and I was awarded the Northeastern University Teaching Award. And I felt that that was a one great accomplishment because I care a lot about my students and I care a lot about teaching. And it was very humbling as well because I was at the ceremony, I was with, a room of many other distinguished educators. And I had so much to learn from each and every one of them in terms of my future as an educator and eventually as a administrator too at Suffolk University. So I think that having that opportunity and to be awarded in such a way really drove me to be even better as an educator. So I think that that's probably that's probably the moment I'm most proud of in terms of my career.
Thank you for sharing. One of the things that I know you and I we've talked about is representation in the work that we do. And as someone who works in education and directing our McNair Scholars Program, um, what are some changes you hope to see in the industry of higher ed or even the workplace at Suffolk to improve Asian American and Pacific Islander work experience or representation?
I think one thing that we all are hoping for is a stronger recognition of many differences that we have and to celebrate those differences. And whether that is differences in learning styles or differences in the way that we kind of perceive the world, and also like accessibility for disabilities, that type of thing. Those are all stuff that we can all work on together as a community. And in terms of changes I would like to see in for the API work experience, I would actually love to see more recognition of our like heritage and our family backgrounds, and have that kind of be more at the forefront. I feel like these things are kind of pushed back in our professional lives, and we should be celebrating these our backgrounds more. And in doing so, we get to know more about each other.
I totally can relate to that. Yeah. Reflecting on your career, who or what has been the most helpful in your professional success?
I have to give a shout out to our center director, Dr. Abraham Pina, because he is not only one of my best friends, but the he is perhaps the smartest and most hardworking individual that I know, and he's incredibly humble at the same time. So whenever I compliment him on these things, he doesn't even like bat an eye or anything. So I think that Dr. Pina gave me the opportunity when I shifted from primarily teaching at Northeastern, and I still teach at Northeastern, but my primary my primary role is as the director of the McNair Scholars Program. So for him to give me the opportunity to kind of assist students in a different way, because the reason why I kind of switched over to becoming a program director was I could help students in a classroom setting as a professor, but only in my classroom. Once the semester's over, I don't have that much left to provide for them. But as a program director, I spend years with these students. I take them to trips. I spend so much more time with them, and I get so much closer to them, and I feel that I can have a stronger impact in their lives. So I have to thank Dr. Pena for that opportunity and all the little things that he does behind the scenes for not just my program, but for the other two trio programs that are housed at Suffolk University's Center for Academic Access and Opportunity, including Upward Bound and Veterans Upward Bound.
I love that. Can you describe what mentorship has meant for your success and your journey, but most importantly, how you would encourage a student to find an effective mentor?
I will approach this the way that I tell my students when they're looking for people to work with in terms of research. Um, when finding a mentor, whether it is someone that is a mentor for kind of life, for your professional life, for your social life, or your academic or research oriented, those components of your life, sometimes, unfortunately, the individual that first comes to mind who is maybe the expert in a particular subject matter may not be the best person in terms of how your personalities kind of jive together. So I would say that for the young people that are listening to this video, find the individuals that have demonstrated that they are on your side. The people on campus that that you can tell them anything, that they see themselves as not just your mentor but your friend, and they will help you find the things that you are looking for, even if they don't have the answers.
Mm.
They will help find the people that will help you get to those answers. It's the individuals that you can rely on. Those are the ones that you should treasure the most. And that's the most I think that's the most important aspect about being a mentor. is someone that can be relied upon.
Mm, thank you. And having mentors and having sponsors are great. And what role has social capital had in your career journey, and has that influenced the steps that you've taken to get into where you are today? And if you can explain to us what social capital is.
Right. So social capital can be defined as the connections and relationships with people both within and beyond your professional settings. This is your network of your academic network, your research network, your social network. And these are individuals that, and as a whole, that you can call upon for their expertise and skills. And it means everything. It's the social capital that you have and you develop throughout your time as a young professional into your professional, deep into your professional life, that you can rely upon to assist you in so many different ways. I'm a part of various like trio professional networks, trio directors, and that type of thing. And it's amazing to have the feeling that everyone in this room, both figuratively and literal, whether it's an email chain or a Facebook group or a conference where we're all in the same room, it's an amazing feeling to know that everyone here may come from different backgrounds, but they all share the same goals and they all share the same heart. And whenever someone has a question, someone or five people will immediately come up with an answer. They find time to assist each other. And it's amazing how much knowing someone can mean for your academic career and for your professional career. Especially, we spoke earlier about mentors. And if you're able to find that mentor or someone who you believe could be a good mentor to you, they can open the world of other individuals that will be there to assist you in so many different ways. So I would say that I would be, I could not be as effective of a director or as a lecturer, a professor, if it weren't for the networks and the social capitals that I am lucky enough to have. And to bring people into those networks is also an incredibly rewarding feeling. Um, they say that we are always stronger together, and that is true in both the physical and the professional sense.
Absolutely. Can you describe a setback that or challenge that you've experienced in your career journey and how you were able to bounce back and carried on?
I will give you a I'm going to I'm going to interpret that in a slightly different way and
Okay.
explain a situation where um, a a student of mine, in the loosest sense too, was able to take that kind of mindset and come back from a potential setback. So it's very random, but at one point I found myself substitute teaching at a local high school whenever I wasn't working on my classes when I wasn't teaching my classes or working on my dissertation. I would just be subbing at this local high school every now and then, probably like once a week or so. And during one of these sub days, I was subbing for a like a social studies course, and I was playing a little video about World War II to the class. And I saw this young man. He must have been a sophomore in high school at the time, and he was playing with these buckyballs, which are little magnetic balls that you kind of can stick together to either create different colors, almost like making a tapestry, like weaving, or you can make three-dimensional objects out of them. And I looked over at him and I was like, "Oh, those are cool buckyballs, huh? You ever like make a flower and like give it to a special someone?" And then he looked up at me and he was like, "I tried. It didn't work out." So then, without batting an eye, I was like, "Well, you gotta try in order to succeed." And honestly, if you try 10 times and you fail 9 times, succeeding once makes all those other failures worth it, don't you think? And he was like, I guess." So then I'm playing the video. I'm playing this World War II movie, and I see him like making this little flower in the corner. And then at the end of class, he like went up and gave it to a girl. And I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I heard her very distinctively say, "Yeah, okay, sure." And then he looked over at me and he didn't say it audibly, but he mouthed it. He was like, "Thank you." And it's so funny because it was just me like subbing at this school, but I will always remember that moment as like a teaching moment, where a young person felt like he was empowered to succeed.
Yeah. Well, I guess that leads me to my last question.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
Be brave. Don't be afraid. There are so many things that we feel hung up about or that we feel limited, both as a young person and as throughout our lives. And the reality is those we are very good at making excuses to not do something, to not try something, to not learn something. Life is short. You have this one life. You want to you would want to be proud of the choices that you made and not have any regrets. So try everything and go for the things that you want in life, because time flies. One day you're a super socially anxious college student, me, who's very quiet and would never raise my hand or speak up in class. And then, in the blink of an eye, you're in your mid 30s, you have you have your PhD, you are a director of a trio program that's geared towards assisting first generation students, and you are known as the most colorful and loudest person on campus. And the fact of the matter is, I could have been that person years ago, you know. If I wanted to, I could have been helping others and having a positive impact in someone's life, just like I did with that story that I shared like 2 seconds ago, way earlier. Because if you limit yourself, you're limiting the light that you can share with the world. So don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. Just go for it and make the world a better place, however you can.
Well, with that, I want to say thank you so much for
Oh,
this
thank you.
conversation, and thank you for engaging with us and sharing your identity and your history and helping our campus community be a better place. Because yes, um, I know that when you're with your students, it's a loud room, but it's a loud room because there's a lot of fun and joy
Hmm.
going on. And it's only when you create places like that that students feel welcome, and we appreciate what you do on campus.
Absolutely. Yes, it is a joy to share ourselves with our students. And I feel that our our students may not know that. They may think that it is our jobs to deal with them, to take time to spend time with them, but it is a joy. So if you find the individuals in your life, in your academic settings, that enjoy spending time with you, stick to them. They'll be they'll be the ones that you'll remember well beyond graduation.
That is true.